right. Before we get into this, I was hoping each one of you could just give yourself a brief intro. That way I'm not introducing every single person, and then we'll just jump right in.
Sure, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me here. And my name is Simone Fantaccini. I've been working in clinical development in pharma for a few years now. I'm a medical doctor by background, I'm a clinician by background, and since a couple of years, probably more, we have been studying emerging technologies in life sciences and how life sciences can benefit innovation in life sciences. And since 2 years ago, we started exploring the space of DAOs in life sciences.
Yep, nice to see everyone again. Mike Baran here from Pfizer Ventures. So my scientific background is a PhD in biophysics, structural biology. I've been at Pfizer for 15 years in R&D almost the whole time, trying to make medicines. And for the last coming up on 6 years, I guess, dedicated to venture capital, biotech venture capital. So, thank you.
Hi, everybody. Brian Magierski. My background's been in enterprise software for 25, 23 years. Entrepreneur for those 20 years across 4 different ventures. I don't have a bio or a neuroscience background, but I forked my career into brain health about a few years ago. And mostly driven from my daughter, my youngest daughter, who has Down syndrome, and the awakening when she had her first autoimmune condition that whole population suffers from early onset of Alzheimer's disease. And just the frustration with the past 30 years of Alzheimer's research, and in general, the current lack of understanding of brain health. And so I fused my software and crypto interests with brain health, and here I am.
Hi, I'm Stefano Pinilla. I'm a pharmacist by training and a PhD in pharmacology. And yeah, I was an early contributor at DAO, and now I'm co-leading the science and deal flow working group together with Maria Marinova in Athena DAO. So yeah, very interested in the translational potential as an academic of DeSci and how it can help academics bridge these path from the lab bench to the patients.
Hey. Hi everyone, I'm Andrea Rampoldi. Let's say I've entered the DeSci movement from the back door because I don't have a scientific academic background. I started with management engineering, then I specialized in finance, and throughout the years I was focusing more and more on finding ways with which technology could solve financial problems, so financial innovation, open innovation, etc. And I got really into DAOs because I've seen that they really can solve a super urgent funding gap we have in science. And so, yeah, I started researching with Simone on how finance can solve problems in life science. So, yeah.
That's actually one way to get started. A question I'd like each one of you to answer is, where did you get the desire to get into the DeSci space when in the DAO ecosystem, as opposed to doing this through a traditional venture, especially those that are experienced in starting traditional ventures?
I'm happy to start. Being in the industry for a while, then you realize that many things you can do differently. You can do better, especially if you look at how long it takes to bring innovation to patients. It takes more than a decade. And even more if you look at when the discovery happened. So we had a recent case, a CAR-T, so very famous CAR-T cell therapies. If you look back at when the discovery happened, it happened 40 years before the drug reached the market, which is not acceptable for many reasons. So, and this is how I started looking into different ways to accelerate innovation in life sciences, but at the same time, it was not just a gut feeling, so we wanted to be systematic in the approach. This is how we started assessing all the different perspectives around drug discovery, around translational medicine and development until the go-to-market, so until you bring these products to patients in need. And we started mapping all the struggles of different people, like pharmaceutical companies, VCs, investors, patients, patient associations. At some point, then mapping all the alternative and emerging solutions, we found out that probably we can solve a lot of these. Not all of these, because we have to be honest with ourselves. It's a journey. But probably with a more open, decentralized approach, you can solve a lot of these. Because life sciences is already, by definition, an industry that relies on open innovation. There is no closed innovation in life sciences. So already in the most basic case, you have the discovery happening in the university, and then an industry, the company coming in and developing eventually that innovation. So open innovation is not new. We just need tools to accelerate open innovation. And DeSci is a way, at least for me, for accelerating open innovation.
Yep, I can go next. So my journey here to VitaDAO and DeSci is a little less formal. I'll take you back to the lockdown years of COVID. A lot of us were trapped indoors with looking for new hobbies. And I opened a Robinhood account, and I bought some Bitcoin. I didn't know how it worked. I didn't know anything about blockchains. I just bought Bitcoin. And it went up every day. It just kept going up. I was like, what is this stuff, right? Finally, I got out of the house, and the family decided to go on a long road trip. And my wife drove a lot of the way. Thank you. Thank you, wife. But I took that time to learn about blockchains and how they work. And DeFi, right, decentralized finance, was a very hot topic at that time, 2021. And I started thinking, wow, like, this is pretty cool technology. You know, not the tokens themselves, like the underlying blockchain technology. How can we apply this to biotech? I'd love to think of a way to do that. And then I stumbled across VitaDAO, which I just launched, like literally like 3 months before I discovered it. And I said, oh, my first reaction, oh man, they beat me to it. But then I started learning what they were doing, and I was like, you know, maybe this is like a good way to pilot this with Pfizer. And then that brings me to within Pfizer, how we got there. You know, we're always looking for new ways to partner with early stage, either academia or biotech. And we have a nice history over the last 10 years of developing new models, right? So in around 2010, I think we were one of the first pharma to pioneer the open innovation model of co-locating academic and Pfizer scientists together to develop drugs. That's our Centers for Therapeutic Innovation. I had an icon in my previous presentation about that. Then closer to 2020, maybe like 2018 or so, we came up with this concept of generating academic consortiums that we call ITENs. And it's just a way of bringing together academics from different institutions to work in areas that, you know, we have a common interest in. And so fast forward to 2022 now we're in, and I said to my Pfizer colleagues, you know, we have an opportunity here to get involved in a new model that's just getting started. Clearly a lot of momentum in this space. I think we should take a look. And, you know, it's 2023, here we are. So.
Well, when I decided to go into brain health to address this issue with the Down syndrome population and more broadly, I looked at the last 30 years, and the thing with neurodegeneration and cognitive decline it's not a lack of funding. We have a lot of money in this space. It just comes from two sources, over 90% of it, and you know it gets allocated to very few strategies. And so I just said, well, you know, if the situation with neurodegeneration and cognitive decline too, a lot of people don't realize is it happens decades before any symptoms really emerge. And so it's silent, and people don't know what's happening. So for Down syndrome in particular, it's going to happen in their 30s when the pathology starts. The symptoms emerge in the 50s and 60s. So I looked and said, well, I've got about 20, 25 years to make an impact here. What are we going to do to prevent the past 30 years of, you know, the past being prologue for the next 30? Because then it'll be too late. And so I just started thinking differently. And I love software. I was already addicted to blockchain and crypto assets. I got the bug a few years earlier than Michael. What I knew about blockchains and crypto assets and networks were there are amazing coordination potential, properly designed mechanisms that can coordinate talent and capital globally to go after any common mission better than anything I've ever seen. And so I looked at venture philanthropy, I looked at just general foundations, I looked at impact funds, and all of those had so many constraints, and nothing was going to be different. We had plenty of those with plenty of money, and we still weren't solving the problem. So I wanted a different way to do it, and that led me to the DAOs. I'm also thinking you need a comprehensive approach on this too. And Web3, it's growing and growing fast, but we need to onboard tens of millions of people. We need to get that community engaged. The brain health community may not be crypto native yet, maybe crypto resistant. So I needed something complementary to that, and that's kind of a Web 2 app that's going to educate and train people and start tracking longitudinally brain health data and fuse that with pointing these people toward the research that they can fund and participate in. And so I think that's how we can kind of change the game, and I'm trying to do it comprehensively.
Yeah, I come directly from the academic side, so I'm a postdoc, and when DAO launched, I started collaborating with them a little bit before, and I was in the process of filing IP for something I researched during my PhD. I was starting to come into contact with all these like TTOs, all these processes that academics need to follow in order to basically try to spin out something out of the university. And I was extremely lost, even though I work in Denmark, and there they have a very nice ecosystem for these kind of things. It was a very confusing experience as an academic. And I was not interested in crypto at all, so it was a cool technology, but the financial aspect was not super attractive to me. And then I learned about DAO, what they were trying to do about Molecule, and what they were trying to do with tokenized IP. And I thought, okay, this seems like a potential use that actually is interesting and is useful besides the whole like self-referential crypto financial stuff. And I entered the community, and I think only entering the community was much more valuable than all the conversations I've had with my TTO. So like being able to connect with a community of people passionate about translating science, people with a lot of experience from very different walks of life, helped me basically orient my own research and the next steps I needed to take for my own project, but also made me realize the importance of connecting scientists, academic scientists, with all these communities. And it's basically what I've been doing since in DAO first, and now with DAO, besides scouting for potentially interesting projects, organizing the deal flow and the applications we receive, is actually talking with both institutions and individual researchers to onboard them into crypto, because as you said, there is like a lot of resistance for crypto, and science, I think, it's very much hostile to crypto. It's perceived as a very hostile environment also for scientists and people that normally scientists are kind of slow people. Like we tend to just read papers for hours, think a lot about topics. We are not very dynamic, and I think it's super useful to connect that kind of slow thinking with the ultra fast thinking of both crypto, but also people that already have the experience to translate projects is I think the main utility of these huge communities.
Yeah, I think my co-panelists described all the fundamental reason why DeSci can be valuable. So I can add something from my perspective. Maybe you will agree with me, but what really made me make the switch and enter this world is that after years of crypto projects, every day a new crypto projects, now you can find something that has a clear purpose, and there is a clear problem to be solved, and crypto is the mean, blockchain is the mean by which you solve it. So they are not selling you the crypto idea, they are selling the problem and how to solve it. So I think this is one of the main strength points of DeSci.
Totally, and when done correctly, in a lot of cases, you don't even realize that there's a blockchain being involved. You just see the results, hit the market. Estefano, you touched on something that I thought was really like important that I've seen in my experience working with scientists. It's that scientists are very, very data oriented. They think a lot about papers. They think a lot about science. They don't think so much about like marketing, branding, go-to-market, so on and so forth. And so I want to ask you all, how do you think about when scientists want to get involved into something that is so outside of the academic realm, that's so outside of the academic form of thinking, how can they wrap their minds around contributing to a DAO, which is clearly not an academic setting? What advice do you have for them of like how to leave the lab and kind of join reality?
Well, I can start, happy to start. We touched on that a bit. I think we have to focus on the problem to solve. What is the mission behind? So as you alluded to as well, what is behind that vehicle? The vehicle per se is not important. It is important the direction, what is the ultimate goal. And we have seen that. I mean, discussing a lot of scientists, researchers, people that are very active in clinical development. If you start discussing about tokens, about blockchain, I mean, they're lost after 30 seconds. So you have to focus on what is the mission and how doing things differently through a DAO, through decentralized science, can benefit them, can solve a lot of their problems. So flipped in that, and you focus on the problems you're trying to solve and how can they benefit from that approach, then you get them immediately on board because they see it. So if you start from the problem, in our experience, this is how it went with Synapse. So we were discussing about research. And of course, in our network, we have a lot of researchers, I mean, a lot of MDs, a lot of people working in pharma companies. And they were like, actually, this is cool. So we could solve a lot of struggles. So, but we didn't discuss about what's behind. We didn't discuss about the blockchain. So that will come at a later point. So we discuss about the tokens, we discuss about everything. But you focus on the mission, and that is to be common. And then you focus on how this different approach can benefit them.
Please.
Yeah, I would say dealing with PIs or biotech operators that have a specific project and they need to raise money for it, it's not, in my experience, it hasn't been that difficult of a sell, right? Because there just isn't enough capital in that space to fund research. And so people are open to, by any means necessary, as quote goes, right, to get your project financed. I've also had discussions with the head of tech transfer offices from a number of high-profile universities in the U.S., and there it becomes a little bit of a more of a challenge, right? But the discussion is a bit different, right? What I first described, you're talking to an individual PI, there's like a clear project on the table that needs to get funded. My discussions with the TTOs are more like, hey, this is an alternative funding source. You guys are always looking to recover your patent fees. Would you consider this? And then it's like, whoa, crypto, what is this? We don't understand this. And then there's a barrier there. And some will just say, we don't want to get involved with that. Others are more open. So that's my experience.
It was surprising. I've had a couple of conversations now with large university tech transfer offices, and if you actually explain the IP NFT concept, in an understandable way, I guess, the reactions are quite positive. Initially, it was, these universities didn't want anything to do with crypto. They became the gatekeeper for the PIs, at that particular university, for me anyway. And then when I explained IP NFT, the reaction literally was, that is the first use case of a token I've heard that makes sense. and so they're open to it, but then IP ownership becomes an issue. I think they're still more comfortable with the out licensing and retaining their ownership of the IP. But it'll vary by university, I guess.
Yeah, just highlighting the importance of speaking the same language of the scientists and the TTOs, and going to find them where they are, academic conferences. And when I try to approach scientists, and especially as Mike has said, like TTOs, I try to not mention crypto that much until like very late in the process, because it's not really important for the deal we're trying to get into. And then I mentioned crypto idea and like, okay, this is the mechanism that we use. It doesn't really affect anything we've been discussing until now. These are the implications, but really doesn't change any of the legal stuff that we have already been discussing or the scientific stuff with the scientists. And I think then you realize that people are much more open to these kind of mechanisms that initially is thought.
Yeah, and also if I can add, I mean, this is a transitory phase when you really have to focus on speaking their language, etc. But I think that every time a deal is closed and someone adopts the technology, it makes it easier for the next time because you have some social proofs to show to the other. And so, yeah, I think that time will make it easier and easier.
Definitely. I want to switch gears a bit. Everyone on this panel has either seen or been a part of a successful scientific DAO. What are the key metrics on the inside that tell you, hey, you're on the route for success, like things are going in the right direction?
Well, it's curious that you ask, because this is something I have discussed with many people today, because coming from the mindset of a company, you ask yourself, how do you measure success? So we had a great speech from Paolo just before this panel, and that's a nice way to measure success. You can tell, so this is successful. We have also to recognize that everything that we know about DAOs in life sciences is based on Vita DAO. That's the blueprint. I mean, at least for me. So that's my perspective. And then the question I ask myself, and I don't have an answer to that, how do we measure success when we deploy DAOs in other areas that are by definition very different? Because in the case of Vita DAO, this is something that emerged from our study. So Vita DAO is built on a very strong community that existed before the DAO. So now we will face different challenges. We'll face challenges that today we don't know. And we have to find out then how we face and eventually we go past these challenges and how we define success with these new DAOs.
Yeah, I would say I look at it the same way we look at it within Pfizer Ventures. And remember, we're a little bit of a different profile than a traditional institutional venture group that's just driven by financial return. So we look at financial return. I showed that one slide in my talk, right? For sure, we keep an eye on that. But on the strategic side, how do you quantitate that? Can you quantitate that? The easier way is just to have a few clear examples to point to. Paolo mentioned the recent investment in AcceptGen. That's an interesting case study, right? So that's a company that Pfizer was already in discussions with. I think we have an MTA with them, and we had their material in our hands, and we were studying it. And an opportunity came for VitaDAO to invest in the company on the back of a larger financing. I think we showed on the slide, right, that RA Capital also recently invested. And so that's great. You know, you can only do so much under the terms of the MTA. And now Pfizer, by participating in VitaDAO, we're able to use VitaDAO to help AcceptGen generate more data and help us get more comfortable with this early stage science opportunity. Just one other note I'll just mention on this topic of performance is now wearing my Pfizer Ventures hat, all of the biotech VCs, you know, we get together periodically, like once or twice a year, full teams sit down and we just run through each other's portfolios. We're always sharing deal flow with each other. And it's really interesting, right? Like in the traditional biotech financing space, you know, we participate in pretty big financings, like $50, $100 million rounds. These are massive, right? And we talk about those, but it's funny, like inevitably, I always get questions about DeSci and VitaDAO. And so, yeah, I'll just note that, you know, I think while we don't have a lot of participation from the, you know, blue chip venture biotech world at this time, people are watching, and this question of how we quantitate success is important. And I think we need to put some wins up on the board sooner than later, because eventually someone's going to say, someone was showing today the market cap of DeSci. I think Paul was showing that, right? Like trying to shoot for $1 billion market cap. Well, that's great. You know, you've put all this money into this space, but what have we got out of it? And so I think we have 2 or 3 years, but we have to put some wins up on the board here. And wins will be like starting clinical trials, spinning out new companies that go on to attract traditional venture capital. Maybe a pharma company licensed something from a DeSci financed project. But we need a few of those sooner than later. And then I think you'll see some of the people that are kind of lurking on the sidelines come in and put their money where their mouth is, skin in the game. So.
Yeah, I'd echo both of those points. It does come down, then each DAO by DAO, it's going to come down to your mission and your objectives and goals and measuring against those, and it's going to be different for each DAO. I think at the core, certainly community engagement. These are, patient-driven communities, evangelist-driven communities, people that really care, they're looking for solutions. So that level of engagement, and not just engagement by, participating, but also are they sharing data? Are the incentive mechanisms working? Are they participating in some of the research that's going forward? The momentum on research projects, are we attracting high-quality projects and getting them funded? And are they tracking their way toward market and toward actual human use? Those are going to be the things that we have to do. And I do think institutional validation is going to be a big one at some point. We have to integrate into the system somehow. It's great to see Pfizer doing that. I think that was a huge lift for the DeSci space. I know I felt it from some of the institutions I was talking to when that happened. I could share it, and all of a sudden they were much more receptive. There are other cogs in these wheels. I mean, ultimately, I hope that DeSci kind of becomes the underlying network and heartbeat, and the other institutions are latching onto it because they have to. And I think that's where it will go, but I think we got to get them interested and engaged first.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything said, especially with Mike. Like at the end, we will measure success when we reach, we bring some drug therapeutic, diagnostic actually to the market, and we can compare our performance. Personally, for me, the success metrics have been changing. At the beginning, I was if we receive an application of a good application from a good institution, a scientist I admire, that's a success for me. And then it was okay, that happened a lot, and then it started to be, okay, now we need to fund good science, we need to evaluate it, and now, but it's good news that I've been moving the pulse, right? Because it means that we've been checking all those boxes, and now it's okay, now we really need to spin out projects from all these funded science and demonstrate that it can go as far as other mechanisms that are out there.
Yeah, I agree with you guys, but just to add, I think that currently today BioDAOs are proving their success as community tools and mission aligning tools. Take a big crowd and align them toward the mission. I think what we are missing now, and only time will tell, is are they sustainable? Because in the end you need sustainability to exist, because right now they are pumped by funding. So yeah, it's just we missed the last brick, but time will tell. Yeah,
definitely. It's time to value. I mean, it's the underlying, fundamental necessity for any emerging ecosystem or startup, even, and I think that's what it is.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I could have these guys up here for another hour or two, but sadly we are out of time. So please give a big round of applause to our panel.